In 1976, a dead king boarded a plane at Cairo International Airport. He had a passport issued in his name, and under occupation it read, King, Deceased. This isn't some wild conspiracy theory or ancient legend. This actually happened, and the pharaoh's name was Ramesses II, a man who'd been dead for over 3,000 years. Egypt, 1303 BC. A baby boy enters the world who will change history forever. But here's the thing, he wasn't born into royalty the way you might expect. His grandfather was just a soldier, a commoner who climbed the ranks through sheer determination and skill. Yet this boy, this child of a military family, would become Egypt's greatest pharaoh. By the age of 14, he's already named Prince Regent by his father, Seti I. And Seti doesn't just give him a title, he takes him to war. Libya, Palestine, Syria, the boy sees real combat, real bloodshed. He learns how to command armies, how to fight, and most importantly, how to survive in a world where one mistake could mean death. On May 31, 1279 BC, Ramesses is crowned pharaoh of all Egypt. He's barely 20 years old, standing before the most powerful kingdom on earth. No one watching that coronation could have possibly known what was coming. This young man would rule for the next 66 years, longer than most Egyptians would ever live. Think about that for a second. 66 years on the throne. The average Egyptian back then lived maybe 30 years, 35 if they were lucky. Ramesses would live to 90, possibly even 96. He would bury his own children, watch his grandchildren grow old, and even outlive some of his great-grandchildren. By the end of his reign, no living Egyptian had ever known another pharaoh. 5 years into his reign, in 1274 BC, Ramesses faces his greatest test. A fortified city called Kadesh, located in what's now modern-day Syria, stands between Egypt and total regional dominance. The problem, the Hittites control it, and their king, Muwatalli II, has no intention of giving it up. Muwatalli has fortified Kadesh with walls, soldiers, and enough supplies to withstand a siege. Meanwhile, Ramesses marches north with an army of 20,000 men, organized into 4 massive divisions. Each division is named after a god, Amun, Re, Ptah, and Seth, as if the gods themselves were marching to war. But in his eagerness to engage the enemy, Ramesses makes a critical mistake. He pushes too hard, too fast, and his first division, the Amun division, outdistances the others by miles. He's confident, maybe overconfident, and he's about to pay for it. Then something happens that changes everything. 2 Bedouin tribesmen appear at his camp. They claim they're deserters from the Hittite army, and they have intelligence to share. According to them, Muwatalli and his forces are still far away, near the city of Aleppo, miles and miles from Kadesh. Ramesses believes them, and that's his second mistake. Because those men weren't deserters at all, they were spies. And the Hittite army wasn't in Aleppo, they were hiding just beyond the hills, less than 2 miles away. 2,500 Hittite war chariots were waiting in complete silence for the perfect moment to strike. Without warning, those chariots explode from their hiding positions and slam into Ramesses' second division, the Re division. It's absolute chaos, horses screaming, men falling, bronze weapons clashing against shields. The Re division doesn't just retreat, it completely disintegrates. Soldiers scatter in every direction, abandoning their weapons, their commanders, everything. Now the Hittites turn their attention to Ramesses himself, who's back at his camp with just his personal bodyguard. He's surrounded, outnumbered at least 10 to 1, and every military strategist would tell him to do one thing: run. Save yourself, live to fight another day, don't throw your life away. But Ramesses doesn't run. Instead, he does something that seems completely insane. He mounts his chariot, rallies his bodyguard, and charges straight into the enemy lines. It's either the bravest or the stupidest thing you could possibly do, depending on how you look at it. But here's where Egyptian engineering saves his life. The Egyptian chariots are lighter and faster, manned just by 2 people, a driver and an archer. The Hittite chariots carry 3 men, making them heavier, slower, and less maneuverable in close combat. Ramesses and his men exploit this advantage, breaking through the Hittite lines and creating just enough chaos to survive. Eventually, reinforcements arrive and the Hittites withdraw, but here's the uncomfortable truth that neither side wants to admit. Nobody actually won the Battle of Kadesh that day. Ramesses didn't capture the city, Muwatalli kept his territory, and both armies were treated to lick their wounds. Both kings would later claim total victory, and both of them were lying. But watch what Ramesses does next, because this is where he becomes a master of propaganda. He orders the battle carved onto every major temple wall in Egypt: Abu Simbel, Luxor, Karnak, the Ramesseum. He commissions poets to write epic verses about his personal bravery, describing how he fought alone against thousands. He creates his own legend, his own mythology, and here's the thing. It works. For 3,000 years, people remember Kadesh as Ramesses' great victory. 15 years pass after Kadesh, 15 years of small skirmishes and border disputes that neither side can decisively win. By 1258 BC, there's a new Hittite king on the throne, Hattusili III, and he's tired of this endless, pointless conflict. Ramesses, now in his 40s and much wiser than the young warrior who charged into battle, is tired too. So they do something revolutionary. They negotiate the world's first recorded peace treaty, inscribed on tablets of silver. The treaty is explicit and balanced, stating, "Ramesses, the great king of Egypt, shall never attack the country of Hatti. And in return, the king of Hatti shall never attack Egypt." It's simple, direct, and it changes everything. For the first time in generations, the borders between these 2 superpowers are settled and recognized. Trade routes open up that had been closed for decades, allowing merchants to travel safely between the empires. The Hittites share their advanced metalworking techniques with Egypt, showing them how to create superior weapons and tools. In exchange, Egypt teaches the Hittites their agricultural innovations, better irrigation systems, crop rotation methods, techniques that increase yields. To seal the deal permanently, Ramesses marries a Hittite princess, possibly even 2 of them over time. It's diplomacy through marriage, a way to bind the royal families together through blood. And you know what? It actually works. The peace treaty holds strong for the rest of Ramesses' life and beyond, creating stability that allows both empires to prosper. But warfare and diplomacy weren't the only ways Ramesses would leave his mark in history. This man became obsessed with building, with creating monuments so massive they would still be standing thousands of years later. And the crown jewel of all his projects? Abu Simbel. 4 colossal statues of himself, each one standing 65 feet tall, carved directly into the face of a mountain. Just think about the engineering required to pull that off with Bronze Age technology. No cranes, no power tools, just human hands and bronze chisels. Inside Abu Simbel, he builds a temple dedicated to his beloved wife, Nefertari. Now, Ramesses had over 200 wives throughout his life and fathered more than 100 children. But Nefertari was different. She was his first love, his favorite, the one who held his heart. The temple he builds for her rivals even his own in beauty and craftsmanship. Then there's the Ramesseum, his massive mortuary temple designed to honor him after death. At its center stood a statue of Ramesses that towered 56 feet into the sky. Today, it lies in pieces, broken and scattered, but in its time, it dominated the entire landscape for miles around. Not satisfied with temples alone, Ramesses builds an entire city from the ground up, Ramesses, which translates to House of Ramesses. He makes it his new capital, filling it with lush gardens, vast orchards, and temples dedicated not just to Egyptian gods, but to Syrian deities as well. He's no longer just the Pharaoh of Egypt. He's becoming a cosmopolitan ruler who embraces the diversity of his expanding empire. Here's the remarkable thing. There's virtually no ancient site in Egypt that doesn't bear Ramesses' name. He carved his cartouche everywhere, sometimes even chiseling out the names of previous pharaohs and replacing them with his own. It's bold, maybe even arrogant, but who's going to stop him? By the time he's ruled for 40 decades, 50 decades, 60 decades, every living Egyptian knows only one pharaoh, Ramesses the Great. Even pharaohs who seem immortal can't escape old age forever, and eventually it catches up with Ramesses. His teeth rot from a lifetime of eating bread ground with sand and grit, and a severe abscess forms that could have easily killed him. Arthritis twists his spine, forcing him to walk hunched over in constant pain, a shadow of the warrior who once charged into battle. In July or August of 1213 BC, after 66 years on the throne, Ramesses II dies at around 90 years old, maybe even 96. His 13th son, Merneptah, becomes the next pharaoh. But here's the thing. Merneptah is already 60 years old himself. That's how long Ramesses reigned, so long that his own successor was an elderly man. When news of Ramesses' death spreads through Egypt, panic grips the population. An entire generation has been born, grown old, and died knowing only one pharaoh. To them, Ramesses wasn't just a king, he was a living god, and now that god is dead. Many Egyptians genuinely believe the world itself might end. But death is just the beginning of Ramesses' journey through time. Within decades, tomb robbers break into his burial chamber, forcing priests to move his mummy to a safer location. Then they move him again, and again, 3 times in total, each relocation carefully documented on the linen wrappings around his body. The priests are determined to protect their king, even centuries after his death. Fast forward to 1881, a team of archaeologists discovers a hidden cache at Deir el-Bakhri. Inside are over 50 royal mummies, including the body of Ramesses II, preserved for over 3,000 years. By 1974, Ramesses rests in the Cairo Museum, but scientists notice something alarming. The mummy is deteriorating rapidly, fungus is spreading, insects are eating away at the preserved flesh. If nothing is done, one of history's greatest pharaohs will crumble to dust. France offers to help, their scientists having the technology and expertise to save him. But there's an absurd bureaucratic problem. French law requires everyone entering the country to have a valid passport. And yes, that includes 3,000-year-old mummies. So Egypt does the only logical thing. They issue Ramesses II an official passport. Name, Ramesses II. Occupation, king, deceased. This is not a joke, not an urban legend. This passport exists in the archives, and it's completely legitimate. On September 26, 1976, Ramesses' plane touches down at Le Bourget Airport in Paris. Waiting for him is a full military honor guard, government ministers in formal dress, and a ceremony fit for a visiting head of state. The French are greeting a man who died 3,200 years ago with the same respect they'd show a living president. For months, the French team works around the clock, using X-rays, chemical analysis, and gamma radiation to treat the mummy. They discover everything. He stood about 5'7" tall, had reddish hair and fair skin, and bore multiple battle wounds. They find evidence of the arthritis that plagued his final years, and yes, that terrible tooth abscess that must have caused him constant agony. In May 1977, Ramesses flies home to Egypt, his body stabilized and preserved for future generations. The mission is complete. The pharaoh has been saved. Today, Ramesses II rests in the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization in Cairo, still protected, still watched over by guards and scientists. Even in death, he commands respect and attention. Because here's the thing about Ramesses the Great. When he died in 1213 BC, everyone thought his story was over. But his name never stopped living. Not on the temple walls, not in the history books, and certainly not when he traveled to Paris with a passport.
He was the pharaoh who defied death, not once, but twice. First, by living 90 years in an age when most died at 30, and again when he flew across the world 3,000 years after his funeral. Ramesses II, the boy who became a god, the warrior who became a peacemaker, and the king who truly never died.